Author Philip Roth has been awarded nearly every literary honor a writer could hope for, including the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction for American Pastoral, as well as the National Book Award twice. His other well-known novels include Goodbye Columbus, Portnoy's Complaint, and The Human Stain. But it's the 71-year-old author's latest work, his 26th, that may prove to be his biggest seller yet. It's called The Plot Against America, and it imagines a different and potentially more sinister outcome to the 1940 presidential election. In a rare television interview, he shared with me what inspired him and whether he thinks this story may be relevant in today's heated political climate. I understand that 4 years ago you were reading Arthur Schlesinger's book called A Life in the 20th Century, and there was something in it that piqued your fascination with a hypothetical scenario.
Yes.
What was it?
In Arthur's book, he has a line about the 1940 election, that the extreme right wing of the Republican Party, the isolationist wing, wanted to nominate Charles Lindbergh.
Lindbergh, of course, was never nominated for president. In 1940, it was Republican Wendell Willkie who ran against and lost to incumbent FDR. But Roth became fascinated by the idea of a hypothetical Lindbergh presidency.
It was loaded for me.
Why was it loaded?
I suppose it was loaded because Lindbergh's name was a loaded name for me. He was a hero to the entire world for that solo flight he made across the Atlantic in 33 and a half hours from Long Island to Paris. Then, in the late 30s, he ceased being a hero in our household because he began to seem like an anti-Semite. Lindbergh's diaries, subsequently published in his journals, show that he was essentially a white supremacist. Jews were distasteful to him. They were inferior to him.
And you use that, obviously, to write this historical narrative or alternate history. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you have any responsibility in terms of portraying him accurately, or are you openly taking literary license here?
I'm imagining what would have happened or what might have happened. Had Lindbergh become president, he might not have done any of these things. I don't know, I'm just another writer, you know.
What was life like under the Lindbergh administration?
In my book, Lindbergh defeats FDR and therefore implements programs to satisfy his constituency of isolationists. And the first thing he does is reach an understanding with Hitler, and spheres of influence are laid out. So Hitler has his in Europe, and we have ours.
As he has done in previous works, Roth makes himself a character in his own story. This time, he recalls his life as a 7-year-old boy growing up in Newark, New Jersey, with his parents and older brother.
I was curious to see how they would behave. How would my father behave under this provocation and pressure and uncertainty? Because it's so much, the fear is created so much by uncertainty.
You have said it's a mistake for readers to look at this or consider it a commentary about the times we live in now. But so much of it seems to be applicable to the current situation. So why not have it reverberate in that way?
What's applicable?
Well, Lindbergh, when he appears at the Republican National Convention in his flight suit, sounds eerily similar to George Bush putting a flight suit on and going on the aircraft carrier with mission accomplished. Dick Cheney's statement that it's unpatriotic after September 11th to be critical of the administration. The politics of fear. We've talked about that recently, and how both candidates are using it to rally voters to their prospective sides.
People make all kinds of uses of books, and I can't control what they do, and nor do I care to. Of course, they're free. But my intentions, I know, were not to illuminate anything about the Bush administration or the conditions we're living in now.
Even if it wasn't your intent, could you see now, today, now that the book is completed, why parallels might be drawn?
There is one aspect of the book that I do think is relevant, and that's the word fear. I think the many people who seem to be responding to this book in ways they haven't responded necessarily to previous books of mine may be grasping hold of it because the atmosphere of fear in the book touches something that's alive in their experience now.
In an essay for the New York Times Book Review, you did describe President Bush as, quote, a man unfit to run a hardware store, let alone a nation like this one.
I think that's true. You know, living up here in the country, I have friends who are acquaintances who own things like hardware stores and general stores and gas stations and so on. And what made me think of that line was I watched them operate, and I think Bush couldn't do this.
That's pretty damning, and some might say disrespectful.
Disrespectful has no meaning. He's the president. It is damning.
Do you think in any way this is a cautionary tale?
I don't write books for people to draw lessons from them. Don't ask me why I do write them.
Why do you write them? I wasn't going to, but now that you mentioned it.
I write them because I don't know how else to spend the day.
If you'd like to read an excerpt from The Plot Against America, you can find one on our website at today.msnbc.com.